2025 is here, so it's time to move from my old, very full, very chonky reading journal into my new one. While this one has been set up in terms of its start of journal pages, none of these have been populated. But I want to hit the ground running when it comes to my reading in the new year, so we're going to need to fill those in. Grab your journal and other supplies, and let's work together. Starting on the inside cover, I actually haven't even put my name in the journal yet, so that's probably a good place to start. I am gonna pencil it in first, not because I don't know what my name is. It's pretty easy to spell, it's only 4 letters. I just want to make sure that it's central, because otherwise it's gonna sit here for the rest of the year and super bother me. This doesn't need to be an exact science. Central is, I don't know, roughly here-ish. So my name will probably sit about here. To write it in, I'm just going to be using my Zebra Sarasa Mark-On. Seems to be my favorite pen at the moment. And because I wrote my name in kind of scribbly, I'm not perfectly tracing it here. I'm just using it as a rough guideline for where I want my letters to go. Because that pen is still pretty fresh and I do have pencil underneath it, I'm going to hold off on erasing it. I don't want to smudge the very first page of my new journal because I have had that happen before and it was kind of heartbreaking. It doesn't feel like a super great start to the year. So we'll let that one dry and move on to our next pages. This one here is my 52 books in 52 weeks. Notably, I haven't started reading any books for the new year, but as I complete those books, I'm going to fill in this bookshelf. What I was thinking would be kind of fun is using the color from the monthly setup and coloring in any books that I read in that month on the shelf. So for instance, if we flip all the way forward, January is a kind of blue color palette and I've used this very pale blue in the background, so I thought I'd use that same pen color to color in the number of books that I read in January. I figured I could then go and write in the name of the books along the spine because there's probably enough space if I write quite small, but as said, haven't actually started reading any books yet, so nothing to fill in there just now. As for my index though, I do definitely want to fill this one in. I know that I need to leave a space for an end of year review of some description because I'm gonna want to be able to turn to that, and also spaces for each of the months, so I'm going to need at least 13 lines, so the review within the 12 months, which will take me from 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12, 13 to here, so the rest of the space is available for any of my start of journal pages. That gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 12 spaces that I can fill in for all of my start of journal stuff, but notably I have, well, at least I think I have more than that. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then other ones we would have would be 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, but this is all kind of related to book club, so that'd be 19, and then 20 for the year of Goober, and then 21 for the 52-week challenge, or I think it's called like the 52 book club or something like that. We'll talk more about this layout when we get to it. I also have a spare page here for another reading challenge that I was thinking of doing, but they haven't released any of the prompts for it, so we'll see if that actually happens. But notably that is more than 12. So what I'm probably going to have to do in filling in the index is condense some of the sections that I have. For instance, this can be all related to like ratings and goals. That could be like one section, and then I could have a section related to books, which would be the books read, and then also the series tracker. Those could kind of get combined into one index entry. I could then do the same thing for movies, so we've got movies watched and then the movie marathons page, and then just do kind of a similar thing moving forward as well. Of course, I could always try and double the space I have on here by splitting this into 2 halves, but that would make the writing space quite tight, so I probably won't do that. We can at least start this list off though with the ratings and goals space, because I know that that's first. And this is going to be on what I consider to be page 1 in the notebook, because I don't like to include the index in my numbering. Not that I've actually gone and numbered these pages, but I'll probably do that as we go through. After ratings and goals though, we had the reading related layouts. So I'm going to call this 2025 Reads and Series, and that is going to be on page 3, or at least is going to start on page 3. I'm just going to record the starting page. After that one, we saw that we have the movies and marathons, so I'm going to give that the same kind of title. 2025 Movies and Marathons. And if my page math is right, that should start on page number 7. After this, my memory gets a little foggy, so I'm not going to go and fill it in advance, but as we go through those pages, I'll jump back into the index and add them in. Now as that pen is dry, we can flip over to ratings. Now, while I have previously used the core pile rating system, because I needed something with a little bit more structure, I wanted something that would get me thinking a bit more critically about what I was reading, and while I was starting out, it was a really great system for that. Did definitely get me thinking a little bit more just outside of my enjoyment. That being said, a lot of the time I do read just for enjoyment, especially when it comes to fiction books. Primarily I am reading that because I want to enjoy it. So for 2025, I wanted to move to a system where my rating was just kind of based on that specifically. There are still other things that I can consider when I'm thinking about the rating. So like, was the writing done well? Was the plot structured nicely? Did it have a high level of intrigue? Did everything kind of make sense? But to be completely honest, I'm not a book critic. I'm not out here nitpicking other people's stories like, oh, this plot device is so tired, we shouldn't be using this anymore, like whatever. If I enjoy a book, if it gets me in my feelings, I want to be able to give it a high rating even if it wasn't like a literary masterpiece. So on this page, what I want to do is just have some little descriptors of what each of my star ratings mean, and then down the bottom have a space for any additional questions that I can ask myself to help me assign that rating. I always find it more comfortable to write larger bodies of text with my page tilted, so we're going to put it on an angle here. And I'm gonna get to filling that in. As I went to fill in the different blurbs for each of the star ratings, I did use some of the descriptors that I had in my previous journal to help me out. This was a tweaked or slightly adjusted version of what G from Book Roast gives for hers, but I wanted to get a little bit more descriptive compared to what I had in my previous journal. For instance, previously, for a 5-star, it just said, heck yeah, one of my favorites for sure. But giving myself a little bit of additional space to write in this journal, I decided to be a little bit more descriptive. In terms of the blurbs that I wrote down, for 5-star we have, this is for sure a favorite read of mine, super enjoyed reading, will be thinking on it for ages, because I find that anything I rate 5 stars I usually just replay in my mind over and over again for many weeks. For 4-star I have, this was a really enjoyable read, I'd recommend this to others even though some parts weren't perfect. For some of the words I did have to shorten them slightly so that I could get things to fit, but for 3 stars we have, this was a solid read, don't regret reading it, but it wasn't as impactful or as enjoyable as I hoped. For 2-star, this is where we get into the realm of stuff I just didn't really like, so this one says, this read was eh. Felt like a slog to get me to actually read it, would not recommend it. 1-star though, this one says, this was low-key trash, probably didn't even finish it, hard pass, better than WETF though. At the bottom I also included some questions that I can ask myself to help me assign my ratings. I won't necessarily use these for every single book because they're not necessarily applicable to every single book I read, but the questions I have were, did this book get me in my feels? Did this book have useful and applicable information? How satisfying were the plot payoffs? Did I immediately want the next in the series? Would I read this book again? How many squee moments did I have? Those ones where you kind of just like ball your fists up and get really excited about something that happened. Did I see the plot twists coming? Was the book well written and easily understood? Were the characters distinguishable? Was the pacing of the plot well done? Were you bored while reading? Hopefully not. Did the book bring something new to the table? And would you recommend this to a like-spirited person? So effectively, if I could talk to my past self, would I recommend them to pick up the book? On the other side of the layout though, this is where I have my goals for the year. So reading all 12 of the book club books, reading 12 recommendations from friends, my Goodreads goal of 52 books in 52 weeks, that's what we had the little bookcase for. We have host the Goober Readathon, have a reading retreat away, so like going away for a weekend with my friends, being all cozy, doing some reading, should be a good time. Hosting a proper movie marathon, and growing our reading community. Now notably one of those is not like the other because it's not specifically related to reading, but as we kind of saw in the flip through, I include other types of media in here as well, mainly because I was finding that I was kind of feeling guilty for not reading and like spending my leisure time in other ways because I'm like, oh, if you're not reading, you can't record it in your reading journal, which does seem a little bit silly, don't get me wrong, I know that. But because I was having so much enjoyment with recording my reads in my reading journal and such, I wanted to have that enjoyment for other types of media as well, so I decided to include them. In terms of books read, I haven't started reading for the year, so I don't have anything to record here at this stage, but I do want to go and write down the series that I should be keeping track of because I've already started the series and I want to continue with it. I think I'm probably going to have to use some different colours to indicate a book that I read before this year versus a book that I hope to read in this year, but what I actually have to do is go and find out what series I've started. Thankfully this isn't too hard to do because I can just use Goodreads. And again, we're going to tilt the journal here so I can write all of these down. As suggested, I did just go to Goodreads and had a look through all of the books that I read this year in particular and check to see if they were part of any ongoing series. I didn't necessarily add every single series that I've started because some of them I don't necessarily want to continue with, but the ones that I am interested in reading the rest of, I wanted to add those in here. I had to be careful as I went through to not include any series that I've actually already finished because I don't necessarily want to reread them, and I did also include a couple of series that I haven't technically started at this stage, but I know I do want to start in 2025. In terms of recording each of the series though, I just have a light grey highlight for the series name, and then underneath this I can write down all of the entries to that series. I wanted to record each of those entries or books by title, mainly because I have a hard time remembering what order to read things in, or if I'm just using a number, I don't necessarily know where in the series that is, especially when you have series that have like prequels and then like little novellas that are somewhere in the middle or something like that. I just find it a little bit tricky to keep up with if I'm only dealing with numbers. The series that I ended up writing down were Lore Olympus, Heartstopper, Saga of the Unfated, The Hunger Games, The Ruinous Love Trilogy, The Shadow Demon Saga, Order and Chaos, The Empyrean, Caraval, Crescent City, and Crowns of Nyaxia. Need to make sure I actually go and write Caraval in. I'm glad that I read through those because I totally would not have spotted it. There are other books on my TBR that are in series, but because I haven't started this series, I don't want to write them down. As said, there are some series on here that I have not started. So for instance, I haven't started Caraval, I haven't started Crescent City, and I haven't started Crowns of Nyaxia. But I've read these two authors before and I've heard very good things about this from people I know, like, and trust, so I'm alright with putting it down here. In terms of marking in the ones that I have read though, I think I might just go fill those ones in with a dark grey, mainly because I know I want to use black to say that I read it this year because I'll probably do that throughout this journal for any kind of checkbox that looks like this. So I think I'll just try N89 first and colour over it maybe twice to see if that works. I don't need it to be too dark, I just need it to kind of indicate that I have read that book before. For instance, I've read most of the Heartstoppers, just not the last one because it isn't out yet. If that proves to not be dark enough though, I'll just go over it again with a different grey pen. But at least from where I'm sitting, it does seem to be dark enough to know that that one has been filled in. Thinking about the other ones, I have read Fate Inked in Blood, I have read Butcher and Blackbird, House of Bane and Blood I have read, Fourth Wing and Iron Flame I have read. Very excited for the next book that comes out. I've read The Hunger Games, so I still have, 4 books left in that series, and then I didn't realize there were this many entries to the Shadow Demon Saga, which is both exciting and daunting, because I've only read the first one. As said, for the other 3 series, I have not actually read an entry in those just yet, but that means we can flip on over to my movie-related pages. This one being movies watched, so haven't watched any movies yet, don't have anything to fill in, and this one being marathons that we want to do. I'm going to need to discuss with my friends which ones we actually still want to do. We wrote down a couple of ideas. One of the things I know I want to marathon though is the Shrek series, so I'm at least going to write that one in. This page works in exactly the same way as my series tracker, except for the fact that the movies on here don't necessarily have to be part of a movie series. That's why I didn't call it like movie series to watch or anything like that, because some of the collections of movies we have on here will be related for some other reason. For instance, maybe we want to go and watch a whole bunch of movies that are centered around Pride and Prejudice. So it's effectively just the Pride and Prejudice story retold in a bunch of different ways. Maybe we want to go and watch all of the movies with Lindsay Lohan or Amanda Bynes or something like that. These are actual examples that we've written down as marathons we want to watch. I just need to check in to make sure that there's still things that we want to watch, because we wrote those lists a little while ago. While I have actually seen Shrek 1 and 2, I'm not going to colour them in because I want to watch these as part of a marathon, so effectively re-watching the movies. I could technically have kind of considered that for the series as well, if there were any of these that I wanted to reread before reading the next edition in the series, but it's alright, I can just remember that for next time maybe. Now I totally said at the start that I was going to number the pages as I went, and I have not been doing that, so we're going to make sure I do that, otherwise I will forget. So this is going to be my first page, or page number 1, even though it's technically not page number 1 in the notebook. As mentioned, I don't like to put my index on page number 1, I like to consider that to be page 0. So we have 1 and 2. then flipping over, we should have 3 and 4. I need to be very careful that I don't accidentally pick up multiple pages when I do this, because I will probably not notice, and then all of my numbering would be off. We have 5 and 6 though. And flipping over, we have 7 and 8. And then for the series tracker or marathons list, we have 9 and 10. After this though, we are into the TVs and games space. So that one being 11 and 12. And there are some series that I'm bringing forward with me into the new year, specifically those being The Rookie and Arcane. Those two are the ones that I'm currently actively watching. There are other TV shows that I've started and I might end up kind of, continuing with in the new year, but until I start rewatching those, or until I start back with watching those, I'm not going to add them to the list. What I do need to do though is go and add in all of the entries to those series. So Arcane has 2 seasons, we can put in 2 boxes, building from the right to the left, because my numbering system goes from right to left here. That was mainly so that I had enough space for whatever number of seasons each of these shows had, because I can't necessarily predict in advance if I'm going to start a show that is, 7 seasons long or 13 or whatever. So I wanted to have ample space to put those in. In terms of The Rookie, season 7 is due to start in 2025, so we'll put in boxes up to season 7, and then I'm going to have to go and colour in the boxes to say which of these I have watched. I think I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the series tracker, so colouring in with the grey, just so then it gives me a better indication of which ones I watched this year versus which ones I've watched in a previous year. So that's the first 3 seasons for The Rookie and season 1 for Arcane. I guess the nice part about doing this in the grey pen means that if I do end up re-watching a season for any reason during the year, I can colour in over the top of that with the black. If I did it the other way around, it's a little harder to colour in with a grey over the top of a black box. I'd have to put down a sticker and white it out or anything like that. In terms of games, haven't started playing any. This one is going to be more so a space that I record the games that I have consumed rather than a games to be played list or anything like that. You'll notice that in my journal, I don't really have a lot of TBRs, TBWs, TBP, to be played, mainly because I found that I wasn't really keeping up with those lists previously, so I'd rather just use this as a log of what I did consume, whether that be read, watch, play, whatever. So that's page 11 and 12, and then over the page we are on to 13 and 14, making sure I write that down before I forget the numbers. 13 and 14. This spot here is a check this out. This is where I come across things that have piqued my interest in some way and I'd like to explore it a little further. The only thing I have so far, because I wrote it down before we got to this filling in point, was a game called Split Fiction. I don't know when it's coming out. I don't know if it's already out. I just know that Vogel said it looked cool and that he wanted to play it with me, so I wrote it down here. This is effectively for stuff that I want to find a little bit more information about before I commit it to being a to be read, to be watched, to be played. And then my wish list space is a place to say these are the books or these are the movies that I want to acquire, whether that's a physical copy, digital copy, whatever else, stuff that I want to bring into my collection. At this stage, the only thing I want to bring into my collection is the book that we have for book club for the month of January, which is Nettle and Bone. And if you are looking to join a book club for this year, you should come join us. There's a link in the description box to more information about that one. It is a free book club. We would love to have you with us, and our first book of the year is Nettle and Bone. Outside of that, I don't have anything to add to this spread just yet, so we can flip on over, and then we have my buddy read space and things that I want to learn. For me, a buddy read is anything that I'm reading with at least one other person that is outside of book club. So reading the same thing at roughly the same time, and we can discuss what our kind of, thoughts on the book were. At this stage, I haven't set up any buddy reads for January, but hopefully I can set one up soon so I can add something to this one. And just like the last page, need to make sure I put in my numbers. Just watch me forget consistently for the rest of this video, but 15 and 16. As the title suggests, this is my to learn space, or skills that I want to learn by reading, consuming media, something like that. And I do have some skills that I jotted down in my last journal, so I want to bring those ones over and note them down as well. I only had 3, that's why I have a smaller list on this page. But we had finance management, gamification, and nutrition. Shuffling that one off to the side. But as you can see, this list isn't super long because oftentimes if I want to learn about something, it's usually something really bite-sized. These are kind of bigger areas that I want to dive into a bit more, get a little bit more in depth with, and just learn some more stuff about. But after this one, we then have the challenges space. So this is a summary of the challenges that I'm undertaking this year, broken down into months. This is my 12 recommendations recommendations from 12 friends, and then after this we have some more challenges as well. The first thing we can note down though is my challenge for January. I'm gonna need a thinner pen for this one, and the challenge I'm undertaking is called TBR-a-thon. This one's hosted by Leandra, the TBR Zero, and so in this box I just wanted to note down what the reading challenge was and who is hosting it. This one is specifically for the month-based challenges rather than the kind of yearly overall challenges, mainly because all of the yearly challenges are in these start of journal pages. But you can see we just have TBR-a-thon, Leandra the TBR Zero, and I need to number this page. 17 and 18. This is the first page in the journal that we have it, but as you can see, I like to print off little covers and stick them into my notebook. I think that they're just a fun way to show the books that I've been reading, or in this case, books, movies, games, that kind of stuff. But because I like to make sure I make full use of any of the sticker paper that I print these on, because these are all printed on sticker paper, I usually save up a bunch of covers to print off at once. At the time of printing these ones, Rachel hadn't decided on what movie or TV show she wanted me to watch. She has since decided that. So to help myself out, I'm going to write a list here of things that I need to print. That's going to be Rachel's TV show pick. And I'm just going to note down that that is 2 centimeters wide because the sizing of these changes depending on which page we're looking at. After this one though, we then have my 25 books for 2025. So these are 25 things that I want to read throughout the year. I'm going to need some way to check off that I have read these though. So I'm thinking of maybe making some little checkmark stickers or something like that. I might put that on my list as well as things to print off. Check mark stickers. It's alright that this is messy as long as I can read it. Over here though we have my reading bingo board. I'm very excited for this one because previously my bingo boards I've had items on there that aren't necessarily aligned with how I like to read, so it was kind of hard to check them off. I'm hoping that this one will go just fine, but this is page 19 and 20, and then after this we are into my watching challenges, so I still have to print off a little cover here, so I can note that one down, but I'm kind of waiting for them to come out with the poster or cover image, because I want this to either be You Season 5 or Stranger Things Season 5, and we don't have the cover picture for those yet. So 25 watches in 2025. That's also 2 centimeters wide. And I know that this page says films and not all of these are films, but I couldn't get 25 watchables for 2025 to fit nicely. Like the text would have had to be really small, or I would have had to adjust the sizing of this layout. So I kind of just took liberties with the word films. I wanted the structure to match the one we have here, which is why it just has films, even though some of these are TV shows. Watch bingo is the same idea though, so just a little bingo board of things that I can color in as I watch things. And this is page 21 and 22. Although it's not necessarily shown for the last 3 spreads at least, I have almost turned over the page and then been like, oh, you have to put in the numbers, you said you were gonna do this. So keeping that in mind, this is page 23 and this is page 24. As you can see, I've already stuck in the book cover for our January book club read. And over here, I think I'm gonna put in the rules for the book club maybe, or possibly a summary of the book club books. Maybe that would be kind of fun. So like longest book, shortest book, one that had the kind of highest rating for the book club overall, which book from the year was my favorite. That might be a more fun way to use this. So I'm gonna write a couple of those down. I need to think probably some more ones that I can include as well. And I think I might make it that the gray line is where I write in the prompt and then the white line is where I write in the response. Actually, I might do that the other way around, only so I don't get too close to the bottom border here. The categories I ended up including were my favorite book from the year, the overall book club favorite book for the year, the longest book, the shortest book, the best character, whether they be main or a side character, the best takeaway point, the worst character, best plot twist, the book that made me cry the most, or a part in one of the books that made me cry the most, and then my average rating for the books overall. I figured that having something like the first book picked versus the last book picked wasn't really necessary because that's kind of what is summarized over here. So it goes January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. I'm gonna probably have to have some kind of sticky note or something here so that I can jot down potentials for each of these categories, just so that I can keep tabs on who's kind of a contender for each one. It can be a little bit hard at the end of the year to remember, I don't know, who the best character was or something like that. They'll probably stand out in my mind, but it'd be nice to have a list of contenders. After this one though, we then have the space for Rebel Reads. These are the books that didn't get selected, because we always have 2 that go head to head. One of them is the winner, it gets selected to be read as part of the book club, and the other one becomes the Rebel Read. On this page though, I wanted to summarize what the 2 books were that went up against each other, and note down which one was the winner. Although you can technically see it from the pictures that I've included, I like to have it as a summary on here as well, and also record what our read themes were. As you'll have seen from the pictures, the books that went head to head were Nettle and Bone and A Dreadful Splendor. The actual prompt for the month though was a book with both flowers and bones on the cover. The prompt was selected by our book club host Rachel, while the 2 reads that went head to head were selected by myself and Monica. In the end though, Nettle and Bone won, and I'm very looking forward to reading it in January. This is page 25 and this one is page 26, and after that we are into the place for the Year of Goober. This is our year-long reading challenge, which I'm very excited about. Long story short is that each of the months has 2 prompts that you can pick from. You pick one of them, you read a book related to the prompt, so that across the year you're reading 12 books. This is another one that has a video on the channel that goes into a bit more detail about it, but on this side I have all of the prompts and what they're related to, and over here I'm going to be summarizing which books I read in relation to those prompts. Because there are 2 prompts each month, I wanted to write down which prompt I had used to select my books, and then stick in some little covers of the books that I ended up reading. Now at this stage I haven't selected which one I'm going to do for January. I have an idea of which one I might do. I have put that forward as an option here in this challenge accepted page, but because I haven't read it yet, I don't want to kind of, count my chickens before they hatch or anything and say, oh yeah, I went with this prompt and this is the book I read. So nothing to print off just yet, nothing to write in just yet, except for, the numbers of the page. Again, me forgetting that I was supposed to be doing that. So we have 27 and we have 28. And then after this one, we have the 52 in 52. Now the reason I called this 52 in 52 is that I initially printed this header off for my challenge of 52 books across the year, forgetting that my bookshelf printable was going to take up the full page, so that one ended up over here. And this prompt list comes from the 52 book club challenge or something like that. I know I'm saying it wrong, there's information in the description box, but I am not necessarily actively going to try and reach all of these prompts or find a book for each of the prompts, but I want to see how many I can hit just with the books that I am reading throughout the year. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to read a climate fiction book. I probably will read a standalone novel, and I think I'm pretty safe on reading in a burr month, so like September, October, mainly because we have the book club, so I have to read a book in those months if I want to do all 12 book club books. I'm looking forward to seeing which ones that I do get done, but I'm not necessarily going to push myself to try and make my 52 books across the year be specifically for these prompts. This one is 29 though, and over here we have 30. And then after this we have the spare pages, which I am going to number even though there's nothing on them yet, because even if I don't end up putting in the reading challenge I was planning on doing, I'll still put something in here. After this we are into the January pages. Now I need to print off a cover for the Bujo Buddies book club book, so I can bring back my list and note down that that is going to be Nettle and Bone. And in terms of the dimensions of that one, we have 1, 2, 3 centimeters wide, because if I know the width then I know the height by default, because I always use the same dimensions. We haven't selected our buddy read just yet, if we're gonna do one, so I can't fill that one in, but I could probably put down as a to-do item, to-do, is set a buddy read for January specifically. This calendar is where I'm going to be summarizing what I've consumed in the month, so just putting in a little highlight to say, oh yes, I read this book across these days, and then also note down their titles and such down here. Haven't started the month though, so don't have anything to fill in. And then after this one, we have the Books of Paradise, or TBR-a-thon. These are the prompts, the places associated with the map. Drawing this out was a lot of fun. I really love drawing maps. They take a little bit of time, but I think they look pretty cool. And at this stage, I still haven't decided how I want to record which of these I end up fulfilling. I do have a little line down the side here to check off any of the prompts that I hit. And I'm also thinking I'm probably not going to read so many books in January that it's hard to keep track of which ones are for which prompt. If need be, I'll just put in a little tip in or something like that to record it, but after this one, we have the pile of possibilities. This is just some books, games, and things that I might want to watch throughout the month. Effectively, if I get stumped thinking like, oh gosh, what should I read next? Or, oh, I want to watch a movie, what should I watch? I can just come and have a look at this page to help me out. But another thing I need to print off are the book club books again. It might seem like a fair bit of printing of just the same cover, which, I mean, technically, yes, it is. But the purpose behind this layout is more so a summary of the book club book and questions that we might want to ask during the book club meeting. In terms of dimensions, this one is going to be 3.5 across though, and I'm very glad that I'm recording this here because otherwise I'd have to come back and measure them all. And then for the runner up, that one needs to be 3 centimeters high. That one being A Dreadful Splendor. Tucking that one to the side though, I haven't actually started reading the book, so I don't have any questions to ask just yet. And after this is where I'm going to be having my January in review, because I'm not sure at this stage what questions I'm going to want to ask with regards to the books. I don't have anything to fill in here just yet, but I do need to make sure I number my pages. So we had 31 and 32, 33 and 34, which I can't put in the corner. After that we have 35, 36, 37, 38, which is taken up by tape, so won't be putting that one in. And then 39, and I suppose 40 as well. With my pages filled in, I feel like I'm ready to hit the ground running in terms of my 2025 reading year. I'm really excited about 2025 in general, and especially excited for my new reading journal and getting in, filling in the pages, and of course all of the reading we're going to be doing. If there are any books in particular you're excited to read in the year ahead, let me know what they are. I'd be curious to possibly add them to my TBR. But if you are on the hunt for more reading journal inspiration, or just wanted a journaling buddy, then this playlist is the next one to check out. In that one we have all of our previous reading journal setups, reading journal flip throughs, and a bunch of ideas of what you could include in yours. So click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.